All right, today we are diving into something really fascinating. It's a powerful metaphor from a book called Emotional Speech Blocks. And honestly, it completely changes how you look at speech difficulties. Think of it like this: a journey down a river that's been blocked by a giant dam.
Just picture this for a second. You've got all these amazing thoughts, these brilliant ideas, feelings, but they're trapped, they're stuck. And every single time you try to get them out, you just hit a wall. It's so incredibly frustrating, right? And that feeling, that's exactly what we're digging into today.
So the book we're drawing from actually gives us a name: Emotional Speech Block Syndrome, or ESBS for short. And look, this is so much more than just the stutter that you might hear on the surface. It's the whole experience. We're talking about the anxiety that kicks in before you even try to speak. The fear, pulling back from social situations, doing those crazy mental gymnastics just to swap out a word you know is going to be a problem, you know? It's the entire iceberg, not just the little bit sticking out of the water.
And that leads to a really critical point here. Stuttering and speech blocks, they're not the actual problem. Think of them as symptoms. Stuttering, that's like the fight response. You're actively trying to force the words out. But a speech block, that's the freeze response. A total stop, nothing comes out. They look different, but they're both just reactions to the same root cause, which is this ESBS.
This issue isn't new at all. It goes way back. But how we understand it, that has changed dramatically. For centuries, people thought it was a physical problem, or worse, some kind of moral failing. Aristotle connected it to nervousness, sure, but it took until 2014 for the term ESBS to even be documented. And that's when the focus really finally shifted to what's going on deep down, the emotional and psychological triggers that are actually causing the blocks.
Okay, so let's get into the heart of this metaphor, because it's brilliant. Imagine that all of your thoughts, your ideas, your words, they're a big, powerful river. And for most people, most of the time, this river just flows. It's natural, it's smooth, it's just effortless communication.
But here's where the problem comes in. For someone with ESBS, all that emotional tension, the fear, the stress, the anxiety, it starts to build a massive dam. And we're not talking about a dam made of concrete and steel. This is a physiological dam. It's the actual physical tightening of muscles in your throat, in your chest, in your face. And it literally stops the words from flowing.
So how does this dam just appear? Well, it all starts with what the book calls the watchtower. That's your amygdala, basically your brain's alarm system. It's always on the lookout for danger. Then you have the scanner. The scanner's job is to spot specific triggers. Maybe it's a phone call, or having to speak in public, or even just one particular word that gives you trouble. The second the scanner spots that trigger, it signals the watchtower. And the watchtower just screams, "Threat!" And that's the command. Build the dam. And your body responds with all that physical tension.
And what's trying to get past this dam? Your words. And in this metaphor, every single attempt to speak is a ship. A little hello, that's a small boat. A huge presentation for work, that's like a massive cargo freighter. And every single one of those ships is carrying the most precious cargo, your thoughts.
This forces people into some pretty strange workarounds, what the author calls camouflage ships. He shares this really personal story. He was at a bar and knew he couldn't say the word Coke because he'd have a total block. So instead he asks, "Can I have a black fizzy drink?" And the bartender just gives him this weird look, like he's joking. The ship got through, he got his drink, but imagine how unnatural and inauthentic that feels.
So, let's look at what happens to these ships, because each outcome is tied to a basic survival response. Sometimes the ships sink before they even leave the harbor. That's flight. You just avoid speaking altogether. Then you have the damaged ships, the ones that try to force their way through the dam, and they come out the other side as stutters. That's the fight response. The blocked ships, they just crash right into the dam. Total silence, the freeze response. And of course, we just talked about the camouflage ships, the ones that take that long, strange, awkward detour around the whole problem.
And here's maybe the most heartbreaking part of this whole metaphor. What happens to the cargo from all those ships that never made it? The ideas, the jokes, the personality, the chance to connect with someone, it doesn't just vanish into thin air. It washes up on the shore. And over time, it forms what the author calls golden hills of lost ideas. What a powerful, sad image of all that untapped potential just sitting there, unsaid.
The people in your life also play a massive role, and they tend to fall into two camps.
On one hand, you have the żuraw, which is Polish for crane. This is the supportive friend, the person whose calm energy actually helps lower the tension, making it a bit easier for your ships to get through. But then, you have the tragarz, the carrier. This is the enabler. They see you struggling and they just jump in and speak for you. And sure, it helps in that exact moment, but in the long run, it stops you from ever learning how to captain your own ships.
Years the author struggled before finding a new way. 20 years. Just let that number sink in for a minute. That's how long the author of this book struggled. This isn't just some phase you grow out of. For so many people, it's a battle that goes on for decades, and it just drains your energy, your confidence, everything.
Okay, so if trying to ram your ships through the dam just leads to more damage and more frustration, what do? What's the solution? This is where the whole approach takes a really unexpected turn. The answer is, you don't fight the dam.
You build a new channel, a completely new one. You basically abandon that old, dangerous river with its dam that could pop up at any second. Instead, you engineer a brand new waterway, one that's clear, reliable, and built just for your thoughts. And this is the absolute core of the method called Nowa Mowa, which just means new speech.
So how do you actually build this new channel? Well, it's a really methodical process with 3 big steps. Step 1. You place a symbolic stone, which is really about making a firm, conscious decision to stop using that old, broken system. You're done with it. Step 2, you go to what's called the School of New Speech, and you learn the actual skills, how to control your body's tension, how to manage those emotional triggers. And finally, step 3, you start digging. You practice these new skills out in the real world, slowly building those new positive habits, creating that new channel.
And that commitment, that first step, is so crucial. Because this isn't a magic wand. It's not a one-and-done thing. Placing that stone is a choice you have to make again and again. But here's the cool part. Every single time you use your new speech successfully, you're reinforcing that decision. You're proving to yourself that this new way works, which makes going back to that old blocked river less and less appealing.
And the result? It's really a whole new way of being. In this new channel, the water is perfectly calm and clear. It's a beautiful picture of what it's like when your speech is controlled, your thoughts are direct, and your words just flow. Smoothly, confidently, and completely free from that old fear of the dam.
The transformation is just profound. And it's not really just about being able to speak more fluently. It's about reclaiming who you are. It's about getting your confidence back. Honestly, that shift in self-worth is often the biggest one of all. You go from a life that's ruled by fear and avoidance to one where you feel self-assured and free.
Because at the end of the day, you can't fix a problem if you don't really understand it. And that's what this whole metaphor, the river, the dam, the ships, is all about. It's a map. It gives you the awareness you need to finally stop fighting a battle you can't win and instead start building a whole new path forward.
So that leaves us with one last question to think about. Whether this is for you or for someone you care about, what precious thoughts are just waiting in your river? What golden hills full of ideas, personality, and connection are just sitting there, waiting for a clear channel so they can finally flow?